belongs to your family. There is something that your mother told me or experienced.
My mother and my father.
Sì, è ispirata alla storia di mia madre e mio padre. E mia madre, quando era ragazza, a 18 anni, ha avuto il primo incarico, ha lasciato il paese, è andata in questo posto molto molto sperduto e lì insomma ha incontrato tante difficoltà, la pioggia nell'aula, eccetera. E ha incontrato mio padre che veramente scappava dagli zingari che lo cercavano perché era stato, sì, è vero. Questa circostanza è quella più vera, la più romanzesca, perché lui era stato come trapezzista di questo circo che non ha voluto sposare, quindi lui scappava, si era rifugiato in questo posto dallo zio. Mia madre era lì, veniva da una storia d'amore un po' dolorosa, e poi si sono incontrati, poi si sono sposati e si sono amati molto.
Yes, it is truly inspired by the story of my mother and my father. My mother, when she was 18, got her first assignment as a teacher, so she left her hometown and she went to this village in this remote area. And she did have to face all those difficulties, like the rain in the school and all the things we saw. And it is true that she met my father there. And my father was actually escaping from some gypsy people that wanted to, were after him because he had a love affair with a circus artist. And so the part of the movie that seems the most absurd is actually very, very true. He had run off and sought refuge at his uncle's place. And my mother was there also after a painful love story, and she met my father under those circumstances, and initially it was tough, but there was a lot of love between them.
I'm very curious, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, to ask you how and why a Chinese artist is involved in this story.
For me it's very clear now. For two reasons, per due ragioni. La prima ragione è quella che ho detto prima. Per me era molto importante scrivere un film molto visivo, e in questo senso io amo moltissimo i film orientali. Penso che loro riescano a creare la bellezza senza soldi. Io non avevo soldi e volevo rifare quel percorso. La bellezza può non costare, non è solo una questione di mezzi. Per esempio i colori non costano. E veramente nei film orientali questa è la cosa che mi affascina di più, che con pochissimo, ma questa è anche una tradizione della pittura italiana del Novecento, cioè Morandi per esempio, che ha sempre dipinto bottiglie nella sua vita. Insomma, questo è un po' il mio gusto cinematografico. L'altra ragione è che Shenyang veramente...
Actually, the first reason, to me it's very clear. As I was watching the movie again, I thought it was very evident. And the first reason, the most important, is the one that I mentioned before. I wanted to write a movie from the outset that was a very visual movie, where the visual component was very important. And I really loved that aspect in films from the East. I find that they are masters at creating beauty without a high budget. And of course I did not have a high budget, and I wanted to do that, to recreate that kind of beauty. For example, and I think beauty can be done without a lot of means. And for example, a very important key to beauty is color, and color can be very cheap. And so I am very fascinated by how they managed to do this in the Eastern world. But we do have that in Italy, in the Italian tradition as well. For example, I'm thinking of the great painters of the 20th century in Italy, and in particular to Morandi. This is something that he was an master at, and I've always really liked it.
E la seconda ragione è che Shenyang nella sua vita, noi abbiamo la stessa età, ma nella sua vita ha vissuto questa condizione, perché quando era ragazzo in Cina tutti, lui faceva l'Accademia del Cinema di Pechino, ma tutti dovevano passare un anno in campagna, c'era il maoismo ancora, e quindi lui ha veramente vissuto nel mondo contadino, e questo è stato molto utile per dare verità alle situazioni. Molte delle situazioni di questo mondo contadino pugliese vengono dall'esperienza di Shenyang del mondo contadino cinese, perché si somigliano i mondi.
And the second point was that Shenyang is the same age as me, and he actually lived this condition of experiencing life in the country, peasant life, directly, firsthand. He studied as an artist in the Beijing Art Academy, but by law it was still the Mao era, and he had to spend a year in the country. So he did live in a world that was very similar to the world that I wanted to recreate, and I find that he was able to provide a lot of truth to this, which was what I was after. So interestingly, the peasant country world in Puglia in the 50s was very similar to the Chinese country experience that my co-writer had.
Could you please tell us something about the actors? With the exception of the marvelous Isabella Aragonese, it seems to me that they're all non-professional actors. How did you cast them?
È stato lungo, ma sono anche stata fortunata. Ho cercato, mentre cercavo i luoghi, trovavo dei personaggi, mentre cercavo i personaggi, trovavo i luoghi. E non era mia intenzione che fossero tutti non attori, ho provinato anche molti attori, ma ogni volta che incontravo una persona che era molto vicina al personaggio, riempivo quella casella del puzzle, e a poco si è creato un mondo che era completo, ed ero contenta perché volevo che per gli spettatori in Italia fosse veramente un mondo inconsueto, sconosciuto, che non ci fosse nessun volto noto da fiction o da altri film. Per questa storia mi sembrava importante. E poi io avevo già lavorato con Gianni Amelio, con non attori, curavo in particolare quello, ho fatto Il ladro di bambini.
It was a long process, but I was very lucky. While I was scouting for locations, I ended up finding people, and vice versa. When I was looking for people, I found the right locations. And it wasn't my intention from the start to cast all non-professional actors, but I actually did have auditions with professional actors as well. But every time I found a person that seemed to be perfect for the role, turned out to be a non-professional, and little by little I had all the pieces of my puzzles in place, and I had my whole cast before I knew it. And it was very important to me to put together a world that the Italian audience was not familiar with. I didn't want for them to have faces that they would recognize from TV or from other movies. I wanted to create a very unique feel to this story. I also had experience working with non-professional actors because I had worked with another Italian director, Gianni Amelio, in his movie Ladro di Bambini, I think it's children's
Stolen Children.
Stolen Children. And so I did know how to work with non-professionals.
We can start with